Hey there, and welcome to Master English Podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to take a moment to set the stage. This podcast is all about the alphabet and pronunciation. For example, the sounds of alphabet, vowel sounds, consonants, and so on. Every week, we bring you some interesting topics from basic English to advanced English. No matter where you're listening from, I appreciate you tuning in. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might love it too. Your support helps us grow and bring even more amazing content your way. All right, that's enough from me. Let's get into today's episode of learning alphabet and pronunciation. Hey there. So today we're going to talk about something super important for anyone learning English. Mastering the basics. That's right. We're going to focus on the English alphabet and pronunciation. It might seem simple, but when you really start paying attention to how each letter sounds and how they work together, things get much clearer and easier to understand.
I totally agree, Emma. A lot of people think they've got the alphabet down already. After all, it's just 26 letters, right? But here's the thing. It's not just about recognizing the letters or knowing their names. It's about knowing how they actually sound in words. And that can be tricky. English is one of those languages where the pronunciation isn't always what you'd expect based on how something is spelled.
Exactly, James. For example, let's talk about the letter C. It's such a good one to start with because C can sound different depending on the word. In cat, it sounds like a K, but in cell, it sounds like an S. And then there's desh making its own sound, like in cheese. The C is so versatile that it really challenges learners, and we see that a lot in beginner levels.
That's true. And then there's the letter S, which also does its own thing. In snake, it's just a regular S sound, but in words like vision, that S sounds like a Z. So even with simple letters like these, it's all about context. And this is where pronunciation becomes key, because if you get the letter wrong, you might end up saying a completely different word.
It's like a puzzle. So let's talk about the vowels next, because they are by far the trickiest part of English pronunciation, right? A lot of languages have fewer vowel sounds than English, and English vowels tend to shift a lot depending on the word. We've got short vowels, long vowels, diphthongs, the whole spectrum. Let's start with the letter A, for example.
Ah, yes, A. Such a key letter. In words like apple, it has a short sound, but in name, it's a long sound. And in some cases, it even has that diphthong sound, like in rain. You're really combining two sounds into one. But what's so important here is to focus on listening carefully. Many learners don't realize how important it is to distinguish these vowel sounds because even a small change can completely change the word. You don't want to mix up man and main, right?
Definitely. And speaking of diphthongs, let's talk about those in a little more detail. Diphthongs are complex sounds where you combine two vowel sounds into one syllable. For example, in the word coin, you get that oi sound, which is a combination of the O sound and the I sound. English is full of them. Another common one is in the word fire, where the ire is a diphthong. And they can be so confusing for learners because they don't exist in many other languages.
Absolutely. Diphthongs can be tough, but once you start getting used to them, they'll come more naturally. A good tip for learning diphthongs is to break them down into their parts. For example, in the word house, you've got the O diphthong, which blends the O and U sounds together. If you think of it as O and then U, you'll be able to pronounce it more accurately.
Yes, and then there's the letter E. In words like bed, the E is a short vowel sound, but in B, it's a long vowel. And sometimes the letter E can make an entirely different sound, like in here. It's got that E sound, right? These small differences are all over the place in English, so it's super important to pay attention to each one of them. You could say read, but if you said read, you'd be talking about something totally different.
Exactly. And don't even get me started on the letter I. It's got so many different sounds. In sit, the I is short, but inside it's long. And in find, it's that diphthong, a combination of the I sound and E. When learners are first starting out, they'll often confuse these sounds because in their native languages, the vowels might be a lot more consistent. English doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, it's the inconsistency that makes it difficult, but it's also what makes English interesting. And then there's O, which has a bunch of variations. like in hop versus hope or hot versus boat. There are also words like coin, where the O sounds like oi, another diphthong. The O sound can even change based on accents, which is something to keep in mind if you're listening to English speakers from different parts of the world.
I'm glad you mentioned accents, Emma, because that's such a huge factor in pronunciation. If you're trying to get the R sound, for example, it's going to sound different depending on whether you're speaking American English or British English. In American English, the R is pronounced quite strongly, like in river. But in many British accents, it's either not pronounced at all or softened, like in car.
Right? And the letter L is another one that can be tricky. In some accents, like in some British varieties, the L is pronounced with more emphasis on the tongue against the roof of the mouth. In American English, it can sound more like the tongue is just lightly touching the roof of the mouth. Again, accent plays a role in how these sounds come out.
That's a good point. And I think it's important to note that even though there are different accents, the goal isn't to sound exactly like a native speaker from a particular area. The key is clarity. You want to be understood, no matter what your accent is. So, working on basic sounds and focusing on the clear pronunciation of vowels and consonants will help you achieve that.
That's the truth. And let's talk a little more about specific consonants that often cause confusion. The TH sound, for instance. It's one of the hardest for people from certain language backgrounds. In English, we have two distinct TH sounds. The voiceless one, like in think, where you just blow air out with your tongue between your teeth, and the voiced one, like in this, where you add a little vibration with your vocal cords.
Yeah, this one can really trip people up. Many languages don't have the TH sound at all, so learners will often substitute it with something else, like a T or D sound. And while that might be understandable, it can cause confusion. For example, saying tink instead of think or dis instead of this changes the meaning of the word completely.
Exactly. And one more thing I want to mention before we wrap this up is the importance of stress and intonation in English. It's not just about getting the sounds right, but about how you say the words in a sentence. English is a stress-timed language, meaning that some syllables are stressed more than others. And that rhythm is super important for being understood.
Yes, definitely. For example, consider the difference between saying I don't know with the stress on don't versus I don't know with the stress on no. The meaning can change slightly even though the words are the same. So, learning the rhythm of English is just as important as getting the individual sounds right.
Well, I think that covers a lot of ground for today, James. I hope our listeners got a good overview of the English alphabet, the sounds of the letters, and some important pronunciation tips.
Absolutely. And just remember, practice is key. Whether it's listening, repeating, or recording yourself, the more you practice, the more natural your pronunciation will become. Don't worry about getting everything perfect from the start. Just keep going, and you'll improve over time.
Right, it takes time, patience, and consistent effort. But once you get those basics down, everything else will feel so much easier. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we hope this episode was helpful. Keep practicing and have fun with it.
We'll catch you in the next episode. Keep speaking, keep learning, and have a great day. And that wraps up another episode of Master English Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and took something valuable from it. Remember, this podcast is all about learning English by using various kinds of strategies. And I truly appreciate you being part of this journey with me. If you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might enjoy it too. Your support means the world and helps us bring even more amazing content your way. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and Telegram. I'd love to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep pushing forward.